One day, all of the records of mankind will disappear. During the chaos, a savior appears. An unknown system called Zeus appears and creates the VR game Olympus. You can bring the items from the game into reality, and the game maintains modern civilization. However, the boundary between the game and reality soon breaks. Reality did blossom into a brilliant civilization, but it created a social class system that depends on your game rankings and wealth. It became a world where the poor struggled to be rich. Han Ju-hyuk claims to be one of those dirt-poor people. 20 years ago, Ju-hyuk went to school as a child in Olympus. A weird old man suddenly kidnaps him, claiming that he found the talented one. It was an NPC and the embodiment of strength. Ju-hyuk was forced to train in a hellish way. 10 years pass by and Ju-hyuk hears about the level 89 top ranker. The old man claims someone below level 99 is not a ranker. The old man claims Ju-hyuk should trust him because there are some things that cannot be revealed. He claims he will make Ju-hyuk the strongest. However, Ju-hyuk doesn't have money or items. The old man claims that level and stats are everything. Many winters and springs have passed and the old man claims he doesn't have anything to teach the 26-year-old Ju-hyuk anymore. Ju-hyuk, the old man, dies fast. He is still jobless in reality and all he did was go through hellish training for 20 years. Ju-hyuk tries to act like a filial son to the old man and expects a quest from the NPC. Claiming that Ju-hyuk is his successor, the old man gives him a map. Ju-hyuk thanks his master with all his heart and bows down. The old man laughs, saying that the world will soon kneel in front of Ju-hyuk. When Ju-hyuk stood up, the old man had already died. Feeling relieved that 20 years of hell are over, Ju-hyuk checks his status window. His stats are all maxed out except for luck. Ju-hyuk tries to leave the place where he has been secluded for 20 years, but the system announces an error. It detected Ju-hyuk's abnormal leveling method. Zeus resets his level. Ju-hyuk can only cry as his level reaches 0. Disheartened, Ju-hyuk checks his status again. He is surprised to see that his stats are still the same. Despite having restrictions, Ju-hyuk can easily level up with these stats. Feeling hopeful, Ju-hyuk leaves for the starting village of beginners. This is now the true beginning of his life. Ju-hyuk arrives at Urkus. He is happy to be back after 20 long years. He immediately heads out to the hunting grounds, but a guard stops him for being low-leveled. The guard doubts that Ju-hyuk can kill a fanged rabbit. Ju-hyuk ignores the guard and moves forward. Ju-hyuk suddenly gets a quest to relieve the guard's anxiety towards him. The guard notices Ju-hyuk waving at him. He panics as he sees the fanged rabbit attack Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk notices it and defeats the monster in one hit. He continues killing more rabbits that are attacking him. The guard is speechless. He is surprised to see a strong level 1 player. Just then, a wild boar appears and charges at them. Ju-hyuk tells the guard not to worry and kills the boar in one punch. Ju-hyuk levels up and completes the quest. He is surprised to get tons of gold right away. He notices that he can't invest in his stats anymore because they are already maxed out. At least his stats are the same as those of a level 99 player, so Ju-hyuk won't have any problems at all. Ju-hyuk thinks things will be smooth sailing for him. However, he gets marked as a murderer. Ju-hyuk got mistaken for a wanted person, and NPCs keep trying to kill him. He reflexively countered a surprise attack and killed an NPC. He ends up getting a chaotic penalty. Soon after, players also started going for him. You can become a hero if you kill a chaotic user. Ju-hyuk gets cornered and he doesn't have a choice but to fight back in order to live. At least he gets to level up thanks to them. Weeks later, Ju-hyuk fully accepted his situation and planned to hide for a year. He stops pursuing his goal of becoming a hero and lives as a bad guy instead. He wonders if this scenario was created by Zeus for him. Just when he had a lot of questions in mind, Ju-hyuk meets a group of people bowing to him. They call him the successor of the absolute ruler. Ju-hyuk gets an SS rank quest. In the long history of Olympus, only 3 SSS ranked quests have been recorded. It is a scenario at the national level. Ju-hyuk realizes that he has gotten himself caught in a bigger story than Zeus had prepared for him. Ju-hyuk gets to read a long story related to the quest. He finds out that his master is actually a descendant of Shaltera, a person feared by heroes. He also discovers that there is a huge penalty if he doesn't get recognized as the absolute ruler. He gets the benefit of commanding the Sky Devil Elders. He asks the people in front of him if they are the Elders. Taking the mantle of his master, he asks them to lead the way. Ju-hyuk soon finds out that the experience gained by Elders will be transferred to him. He then tells Luxo, the first Elder, that he currently has restrictions and can't use the skills learned from the Master. The Elders knew about it, but Ju-hyuk promised to lead them all the way. He got more loyalty than expected. Back to reality, Sia, Ju-hyuk's sister, tells him about the recent serial killer, Gitrak. Ju-hyuk hopes she's not talking about him. Sia describes Gitrak with dual-wield pistols and around level 40. Ju-hyuk is shocked that the guild will only give her a small share when they catch Gitrak. Sia wonders why Ju-hyuk has looked tired lately. It is because of his negative luck. Ju-hyuk logs back into Olympus. Gitrak suddenly appears, mad that Ju-hyuk is impersonating him. Ju-hyuk is worried about the gap in equipment, but he won't fight alone. He calls Lukso and orders him to kill Getrak. Getrak confidently pulls up his pistols. Lukso disappears from his sight, and his point of view starts to shift sideways. Getrak gets easily beheaded in one strike. Ju-hyuk is surprised as he didn't see anything at all. Lukso presents Getrak's head, and Ju-hyuk gets a level up and a head worth 100 million gold. Ju-hyuk tries to abuse the system and orders the elders to wipe out everything in the place for him. He plans to continue acting as the monarch. Ju-hyuk continues leveling up while the elders gain experience for him. He plans to start a business with his current setup and scenario. He then wonders what to do with Getrak's head. He searches for places to sell items and discovers that it is better to do it in-game. Sia barges into his room. Ju-hyuk wonders what Sia will do if he hands him Getrak's head. Sia takes it as a joke. Ju-hyuk seriously asks her to do a 50-50 split in profits. Sia tells her to stop joking because Getrak is high-leveled. Ju-hyuk reminds her that he is level 99, but Sia doesn't believe him. He then tells her to meet up with him in-game in the Lapina Mountains. Sia wonders why they met there, and Ju-hyuk confesses that he is chaotic. Sia later goes to the Lapina Mountains, where strong monsters are supposed to dwell. However, she hasn't encountered anything at all. Ju-hyuk did mention that he would clear the monsters for her. Ju-hyuk surprises Sia, who screams at his ears point blank. She gets shocked when she sees her brother's chaotic energy. He then hands Getrak's head over. Sia suddenly becomes docile, thinking about the reward. Ju-hyuk tells her to hurry and get the reward. Sia did receive the reward after the head's confirmation. Sia remembers how Ju-hyuk worked hard for the past few years. She later gives 99 million to Ju-hyuk, while she only got 1 million as pocket money. She immediately leaves in a hurry. The SSS ranked quest hasn't started yet, but Ju-hyuk is already rich. He plans to invest in something. That night, he asks Sia to buy items for him. Sia went over time and got the items for her brother. The items can help Ju-hyuk gain experience. Sia asks for expensive warp points, and Ju-hyuk despairs over losing his money. He then brings the elders with him to the Zeph Mountains. Another player sees him and discovers that Ju-hyuk is max chaotic. Seeing that Ju-hyuk looks like a beginner, the party of players prepares for battle. Ju-hyuk notices that he is being restricted, but it doesn't affect him. The players try to surprise him, and Ju-hyuk warns them. The leader's attack bounces off, and another player follows. Ju-hyuk can only feel tickles. He then starts to fight back with bare hands and kills the party's leader. He also easily kills the tank in one punch. The others receive messages from those who just died to run away. They try to run away, but Ju-hyuk quickly catches them. Another misunderstanding arises, and Ju-hyuk gets mistaken for Rendel, the player hunter. Ju-hyuk finishes everything as he levels up and the elder's loyalty increases. He suddenly gains the charismatic trait. Lukso suddenly appears and asks Ju-hyuk to follow him. They've been traveling for a week already, and Ju-hyuk is already tired of walking. They arrive at a rundown village that is supposed to be the Sky Devil hideout. Ju-hyuk knows that his master caused them trouble. He is given a quest to rebuild the village. The elder appears and tells Ju-hyuk that they have been waiting for him all this time. The village's surroundings don't have monsters to hunt, and people are starving. Feeling bad for the state of the village, he announces to everyone outside that he will help them. Ju-hyuk just wants their loyalty though. He then heads out with Lukso to hunt monsters. A week has passed, and Lukso feels proud that Ju-hyuk has prepared things already. Days ago, Ju-hyuk asked Sia to buy magic pockets and massive servings of porridge for him. Sia complies, and Ju-hyuk gives her a blue stone to sell. He also asks her to buy a warping stone so his travels will be quicker. Everything is perfect except that the stones are deadly expensive. Meanwhile, Erda, the 12th elder, is full of doubts about Ju-hyuk. He will follow Lukso, but the other elders might not think the same. Just then, Ju-hyuk and Lukso come back. Ju-hyuk appears with tons of food. Everyone cheers as their loyalty toward Ju-hyuk increases. Ju-hyuk leaves the provisioning to Lukso and another elder. Ju-hyuk later gets approached by Erda, who apologizes for his lack of faith. Ju-hyuk gets his recognition, and he thinks up something with a menacing smile. Ju-hyuk tells Erda that he's thankful for his faith and will repay Erda's faith someday. Erda now fully recognizes him, and Ju-hyuk is really suited to his chaotic role. Erda's stealth skills will be useful for Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk and Erda encounter a giant bear in the Lepnia Mountains. Ju-hyuk takes action by himself and kills the bear with one punch. Ju-hyuk is not sure if the bear is weak or if he is just strong. The two continue their travel and reach the Amantium dungeon. The dungeon is meant for beginners and is swarming with academy students and instructors. Ju-hyuk wonders how strong the instructors are. He heads in and tells Erda to use his stealth. Students casually walk in the dungeon until they notice Ju-hyuk's chaotic presence. They panic and call over an instructor. Ju-hyuk later finds out that his bad luck affects the drop rates. An instructor confronts Ju-hyuk. Seeing that Ju-hyuk is low-leveled, the instructor finds this as a chance to become a hero. He tries to mock Ju-hyuk, but Juhyuk tells him to go on with their class. The two continue to banter while the safe zone is being removed. The safe zone gets lifted and the instructor charges toward Juhyuk. However, Juhyuk casually receives the attack. The instructor asks for backing up. Juhyuk warns him again and casually throws a powerful punch. The instructor dies and Juhyuk threatens the students. Juhyuk casually leaves and arrives at the center of the dungeon. He charges through the skeletons and breaks the defense fortress with one punch. Shouldn't we call him a one-punch man at this rate? He leaves to clear the dungeon further. More instructors arrive and are shocked to see the defense fortress destroyed. The system announces that the dungeon has been cleared, surprising the instructors. A while ago, Juhyuk casually received the skeleton's attacks while staring at the dungeon core. He hopes the shield is strong enough to receive a lot of blows, but it shatters with only one punch. He remembers instructors standing behind him as Juhyuk destroys the dungeon with a punch again. With his step-up points, he finally reaches level 20. He notices that the instructors are at the entrance, and he meets them. An instructor warns him and asks him not to kill the students. Juhyuk claims that he doesn't want to fight from the start. The instructors watch him leave. The lead instructor is glad that no fight has ensued. He is sure that Juhyuk is an agent of chaos and might be Rendel himself. Meanwhile, the real Rendel is having the time of his life, killing other players. He also heard about the person impersonating him. He plans to capture the impersonator before things get troublesome. Back in the Sky Devil village, Juhyuk asks for someone with a long-range attack. An elder named Zeta energetically offers his assistance. Juhyuk later orders Zeta to wipe out the players that are going to attack them. The energetic Zeta moves forward and summons the advent of the evil god. The summon easily wipes out the players. Juhyuk's killer's mark grows darker. Surprisingly, he becomes more notorious and achieves a bloodlust trait. The bloodlust trait weakens the offense and defense of enemies in PvP. All sorts of penalties are given. However, for Juhyuk, this boosts the loyalty of the Sky Devils. Zeta clears up the players and now monsters are approaching. Juhyuk asks Zeta for support. Juhyuk jumps in and, surprisingly, kills a monster with one punch again. The two continue killing the monsters while a party of players watches them. Zeta lets out a special attack, and Juhyuk finds it overbearing. As they gather bluestones, boss monsters spawn in the area. The Black Cow King appears. Juhyuk asks Zeta to take care of the little fries while he deals with the boss. Zeta points out that more trouble is coming and that players are starting to appear. The two ran off to avoid trouble today. Back to reality, Juhyuk can't find any info about the Black Cow King. His negative luck might have played a part in its appearance. As he scrolls through the forum, he finds weird happenings lately inside the game and realizes he might be at fault. He also finds out the Black Cow King got killed and dropped bundles of bluestones. He gets stressed ignoring such treasure. He's only got a few million left. He plans to level up faster to gain more money. Meanwhile, Director Yu Kaiyan receives a report about the Black Cow King. He gives out orders to hunt Juhyuk, who has been messing with their members. 3 weeks later, Juhyuk, reaches level 29. Luxo worries that Juhyuk is overworking lately. Juhyuk shows his overbearing charisma and claims that he needs to get stronger to make everyone kneel in front of the Sky Devils. Luxo is deeply moved. However, Juhyuk is only working hard to get an apartment and a car. Just then, he gets a message from Sia, who informs him that there is a world quest involving the 7 constellations. The quest asks the 7 constellations to gather to defeat the absolute evil. 7 hidden classes are going to be released soon. Juhyuk wonders if it will be related to him. Sia wonders if Juhyuk will take part in it. He can't join because he is an agent of chaos. He knows he will be hunted, so he needs to get stronger. He gets back to Olympus and tells the elders that he will leave for a solo expedition. He leaves the village for the elders to take care of. He still needs to improve the living conditions in the village. He needs to level up faster to be able to use the Paction Inner Key skill and follow his master's marked map. For now, he relieves his stress by killing monsters. He gains a skill called Weirdly Strong Fist. Checking on the description, he celebrates that he won't end a fight with one punch now. Just then, Rendel appears and blames Juhyuk for the troubles our protagonist has caused him. However, Juhyuk doesn't know him and calls him funny. Rendel snaps at Juhyuk and gets mad for being impersonated. Rendel keeps complaining while Juhyuk is dumbfounded. Juhyuk asks for a match and Rendel angrily attacks him. Juhyuk is disappointed that the infamous Death Nail only decreases his HP by 3%. To have fun, Juhyuk activates his newly gained skill. He blinks and punches Rendel, but the punch only broke Rendel's defensive barrier. Assuming that Juhyuk's skill is on cooldown, Rendel attacks him. Just then, Juhyuk buries his fist in Rendel's face. All of Rendel's barriers get broken easily. Rendel gets pissed off and activates his sure-killing skill, Heart Attack. Juhyuk gets excited and turns off his skills. Rendel sees that Juhyuk doesn't have a skill anymore and attacks him. The two clash with their attacks. Rendel can't believe Juhyuk didn't die. Ju-hyuk looks disappointedly at Rupendel's corpse. He comments on how weak Rupendel is despite being highly leveled. Both find it weird that Rupendel didn't drop any items. Ju-hyuk discovers that he broke everything. He ignores it and leaves. Rupendel swears to make Ju-hyuk pay for this humiliation. Just then, Rupendel's soul gets restricted. A person appears and laughs at how he comes across a high-quality corpse. Rupendel becomes enslaved and restricted by the strange person. Rupendel thinks the person is a necromancer, hidden class. Rupendel then suggests getting Ju-hyuk too with his help. Back to reality, Ju-hyuk and Sia celebrate at McDonald's with Sia's favorite burgers. Sia wonders if there is a catch and Ju-hyuk suddenly gets serious. He states that he is having a hard time getting drops. So he asks Sia to create a startup with him. Sia calls him crazy. She worries about the stagnating market and her upcoming promotion in the union. She tries to hear out her brother first. Meanwhile, Hyuk hears that Ju-hyuk won't harm them as long as they don't bother him. They also record a fight between Ju-hyuk and Rupendel. They assume that Ju-hyuk has a martial arts-related hidden class. Hyuk also reports that they receive a rare quest to capture someone called Ramtadian. They wonder if Ramtadian and Ju-hyuk are the same person. Hyuk asks the leader for 30 men to participate in hunting the Chaos-aligned agent. The leader also agrees to the huge amount of funding. The bounty is huge and they can get a huge share. The leader doesn't care who dies as long as he gets the money. Ju-hyuk and Sia meet in-game. Sia brought spell books and worries that his brother will reset his character. However, for Ju-hyuk, he can learn them because he is still jobless. He doesn't want to stay as the Korean Saitama. Sia freaks out knowing her brother is jobless, and she even quits her job to join him. Ju-hyuk thanks her because they are making history. Ju-hyuk tests his healing spell on Sia, and her little sister can't believe how effective it is. Ju-hyuk gives Sia buffs and tells her to fight the giant bear, which usually needs a full party to kill it. Sia kills it in a few minutes and she finds it insane. They also buy a bluestone that they can sell for full price because they are unaffiliated. They then move out to gain levels. In the dark wilderness, Ju-hyuk casually aggroes a horde of monsters like Sia, who is casting a spell. Sia lets out the massive spell, which kills the monster horde. More bluestones drop and Sia can feel the money coming in. However, players are still attacking Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk can only fight back and must not attack first. A raid team arrives and they challenge them to a PvP. Ju-hyuk laughs at them for bringing a lot of people to kill one person. The director orders the others to start attacking. Ju-hyuk sighs as he is restrained. Ju-hyuk easily gets out and casts Fireball. Seeing a common magic, the raid team confidently put up a defense. They even stack all sorts of barrier combos. The simple Fireball hits them and they all explode. The director can't believe that his men got wiped out so easily. He trembles at seeing a common spell obliterate them. The siblings are also surprised at how powerful the Fireball is. Sia is now scared of his brother, who is not normal anymore. Ju-hyuk still waits for the cooldown to end. The director asks for more tanks that can withstand magic. He thinks Ju-hyuk is still restrained because he is just standing in one place. The director then orders archers to attack Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk just smiles as more arrows are fired toward him. Just when the director thought that they won, Ju-hyuk jumps on them. He uses a fireball at point-blank range and starts beating them up while reminding them not to bother him. Everyone gets flustered until the union leader arrives. A lot of reinforcements arrive just to capture Ju-hyuk. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk finds them weaker than Rupendel. Sia worries as the fight ensues. Ju-hyuk tells her to attack him too so she won't be suspected as his accomplice. Sia casts her powerful lightning magic and Ju-hyuk is proud of his sister as he receives the attack. Sia hears a system notification about his special job change quest. Just then, Ju-hyuk's killer grade increases and he gains a new killer title. The new title lets him gain a lot of stats during PvP and player killing. As his sins deepen, the Sky Devil's loyalty also increases. Everyone is confused about whether Ju-hyuk is a fighter or mage. He claims he didn't change classes and everyone finds it ridiculous. The leader thinks he has a hidden class with certain weaknesses. He and the director charge at Ju-hyuk, but Ju-hyuk easily murders them. Sia tells Ju-hyuk that she might have a special job change. The siblings enter a dungeon and Sia starts attacking Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk can feel the attack like a prick. Sia continues firing off more magic spells. Sia gets more notification for attacking a sin-bearing target. She gets tired after an hour, and she finds out about her brother's title. Ju-hyuk confirms and notices monsters. He starts killing them off and Sia can see records of Ju-hyuk's movements and actions. Sia tells him to go further, and as soon as the system notifies her that the killer of thousands ran away, Sia gains a new job. The scenario gets updated and Sia becomes the 7th constellation. Meanwhile, the union conducts an offline meeting. The leader is plotting something again. He needs to work with the directors to kill Ju-hyuk. He logs in and goes to a tavern. He asks the bartender for someone to assassinate. He pours a lot of money into hiring Salmak. one of the top assassination groups. He leaves the safe zone and gets beheaded. As a soul, he discovers that it was the Abyss troop that killed him. The assassin announces that this is the start of the leader's indefinite life sentence. A man who expected the leader to be dead moves out. He did expect the absolute being to come, and now is the time for him to see if Ju-hyuk is worthy. The head of the Salmek group is the second elder Yorhan. Ju-hyuk, on the other hand, is surprised by Sia's experience gains after she changed jobs as a pure white magician. Sia thanks her brother for getting her a hidden class. They decided to talk in whispers so others wouldn't find them suspicious. Simply hitting Ju-hyuk made Sia a platinum rank hero. Ju-hyuk tells her to be careful when hitting him. However, the sister is excited to kill her brother instead. She expects some sort of killing reward. Sia promises to share the reward. Ju-hyuk agrees, but it must be in a situation where he needs to die. Days later, the siblings clear a dungeon together. Ju-hyuk just needs a few more monsters to kill to reach level 40. Sia leaves to restock on potions and items. Right after Sia left, Yorin creeps behind Ju-hyuk, while stating that he appeared to check if Ju-hyuk is worthy of being the absolute being. And SSS rank quest triggers at the same time. Ju-hyuk must hold off Yorhan's attack and gain his recognition. He finds the situation ridiculous. Seeing that Sia became a constellation, Ju-hyuk can also become the absolute being to balance the game's main scenario. Ju-hyuk then tells Yorhan that it is unnecessary to check his worthiness because he is currently weak due to some restrictions. He tells Yorhan not to be impatient or he will regret it later. Yorhan is speechless. Ju-hyuk then claims that he will soon learn Sky Destroyer, which his master taught him. Yorhan is shocked. Ju-hyuk asks for a small amount of time and Yorhan agrees to it as he fades away. Ju-hyuk leaves the dungeon, but there are no monsters around. He's got 30 seconds left and Sia connects with him. He tells her to stay away, but Ju-hyuk sees her pulling in a monster horde. She asks for help, and Ju-hyuk commends his little sister. Ju-hyuk flashes by and slays the monsters until he levels up to 40. Yorin creeps in and Ju-hyuk activates Sky Destroyer. His abilities are enhanced and his governance over the Sky Devils increases. Conditions are met and Ju-hyuk becomes the absolute being. He now holds the power to corrupt the world and disrupt order. All of his stats and cooldowns improve greatly. Yorin immediately bows down to him. Ju-hyuk acts benevolently as he gains Yorhan's recognition. Sia suddenly whispers in panic that the absolute evil has been born and the community is going crazy with the notification. She suggests hunting it, but it is her brother she is talking about. Sia is surprised that Ju-hyuk surprised the cap value of stats and went over 100. Sia is shocked enough to make her log out to attend a meeting. Just as Yorhan starts to discuss Salmek, a raiding team appears to kill Ramtadian. Ju-hyuk is pissed off at being called a Ramtadian. The raiding team attacks him, but Ju-hyuk doesn't take a minute to kill them. He attacks the raid commander and he gets impressed that his punch got blocked. However, Ju-hyuk finishes him off with a smack. The raid team members are actually NPCs and Ju-hyuk gains evil points. Another person appears and claims to make Ju-hyuk his servant. The hooded person brings out Rupendel, who seeks revenge on Ju-hyuk. Rupendel claims that Ju-hyuk will be dead soon. The hooded person then uses the nearby NPC corpses as her undead army. The undead commander is confident now that he will defeat Ju-hyuk. Just then, the system informs Ju-hyuk that he has control over all kinds of black magic products. The necromancer gets flustered as Ju-hyuk gains control over her undead. Ju-hyuk tells the undead NPCs to die and shifts his attention to Rupendel. Rupendel tries to resist Ju-hyuk's order, but he gets punished. Rupendel did as Ju-hyuk said. The necromancer apologizes as she gets flustered. She asks if she can leave and Ju-hyuk permits her to do so. Rupendel suddenly warms up to Ju-hyuk and swears not to betray him. Ju-hyuk is happy that he got a new pet. Meanwhile, a woman complains that Ju-hyuk is too overpowering. She thinks Ju-hyuk is the person that her master told her to support. She calls herself an idiot for running away instead of sticking to Ju-hyuk. She remembers that she has a meeting and quickly leaves. Ju-hyuk tells Yorhan to quickly explain before they get interrupted again. The Salmek group has a lot of high-ranking assassins and connections to nobles. Including the gold amassed, Yorhan pledges his group to Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk receives Salmek and $600 million in gold. He continues acting benevolent enough to make Yorhan cry. As Ju-hyuk celebrates, Yorhan warns him about Lexer, the third elder. He is also an assassin who doesn't think twice. He is also the owner of the second assassin group, Abyss Troop. A notification comes saying that 2 more constellations have appeared. Stia suddenly whispers and talks about her friend, Sasong, who is obviously familiar. Stia and Sasong talk about the latter's phobia of guys. Sasong claims she doesn't have that kind of phobia. Sia asks how she's been lately and Sasong tells her something. The two later go their separate ways and Sia can't believe she just heard something ridiculous. She needs to contact her brother. After the whisper, Sia ran back home. She heard from Sasong that the absolute evil will fight the 7 constellations alone. However, there are classes that need to support the absolute evil, including Saesong, who is an absolute necromancer. Ju-hyuk wonders why she told him. Sia states that she knows that he is the absolute evil. Ju-hyuk tries to play dumb, but Sia starts firing off facts about her brother lately. She also realized that it was him after she became a constellation. Sia claims they will be in trouble if people find out about the two of them. Sia tells her brother to meet Saesong. However, he must wear a mask to avoid attention. The three meet up, and the two absolutes easily recognize each other. Saesong has been embarrassed by role-playing before. Saesong wonders how Ju-hyuk and Sia are related. They confess their roles and relationships, leaving Saesong dumbfounded. She gets mad at Sia for keeping it a secret. She is only focused on dressing up in front of her favorite sister's brother. She tries to act cutely, but Ju-hyuk is into older women. Ju-hyuk then reminds Saesong about something, and the girl presents her master's will. It is a map, and Ju-hyuk realizes something. It is the same as the map Ju-hyuk's master gave him. It also contains the mark of the sky's destruction. He can't believe that he has supporters. Their classes are meant to help the absolute evil. Ju-hyuk is happy to get a lackey. Ju-hyuk claims Saesong to his side. He then tells her to level up a bit. Days later, the group hunts monsters. A familiar undead levels up and now serves as Ju-hyuk's loot collector. The Great Rupendel is now a mere item collector. Ju-hyuk finds Saesong clumsy, but she has the ability to cover for it. She lets her undead go hunting for her. The undead are the best army Ju-hyuk can ask for. Saesong just needs to reach level 20 to learn sky destruction. He knows his master's quest is impossible to complete alone. He is lucky that Sia found Saesong. Ju-hyuk gets surprised as a cute level 20 Saesong hugs him. Ju-hyuk tells them their next destination, and they split into two groups. Meanwhile, the Union notices Chaos players approaching. Ibe, the Warp Gate Overseer, confronts Ju-hyuk and Rupendel. Ibe recognizes Rupendel and claims that he picked up a pet. Ibe sees Ju-hyuk's level and mocks him. Rupendel gets flustered. Ibe then tells them that the regular fare rate doesn't apply to Chaos players and asks for 30 million. While Rupendel is complaining, Ibe whispers to Ju-hyuk and offers to help him. Ju-hyuk smirks and acts like he is being treated as a slave by Rupendel. Sia and Saesong arrive the Kargonis Mountains first. Saesong panics because she can't understand the map. Ibe is a team leader in the Union. He only got to work on the Warp Portal Management team because of his aunt. Ibe looks down on Ju-hyuk, who is acting poorly. Ju-hyuk whispers to Rupendel that Ibe is planning to backstab them. The two start acting and pay the fare. They arrive at the Kargonis Mountains and leave the safe zone. Someone whispers to Ju-hyuk to attack, and the two start acting again. Ju-hyuk sets the damage of his punch to 0, and Rupendel is glad that there was no damage at all. Seeing Rupendel getting busy, the Union members were surprised and attacked him. Ibe appears and attacks Ju-hyuk, thinking that he can loot him. However, the attack didn't scratch Ju-hyuk a bit. Ju-hyuk counterattacks, and Ibe is surprised that there was no damage. Ju-hyuk forgot to change the settings. The Union members get flustered as Rupendel kills them one by one. He thanks Ju-hyuk for the buffs and discovers Ibe is still alive. Ju-hyuk can't kill him because there will be no drops. Ibe gets flustered and offers to give back the money he extorted from them. Ju-hyuk orders Rupendel to rip off as much as he can from Ibe. Rupendel does his best to be menacing, and Ibe offers 130 million. They got the money and Ibe quickly leaves. However, Ju-hyuk wants justice and Rupendel goes for Ibe. Rupendel instantly kills Ibe and now fully respects Ju-hyuk. An item drops and Ibe offers 1 billion for it. Rupendel refuses and gives the bag to Ju-hyuk. They check what is inside and get surprised. Ju-hyuk can't believe Ibe is in possession of it. Anyway, they got a bunch of unique items and millions of gold. Ju-hyuk gives Rupendel his bonus and leaves. Ju-hyuk finally meets up with Sia and Saesong. Saesong heard that there is a strong monster nearby that has killed numerous famous NPCs already. A party of level 50 players also wiped out. After 3 days, the girls are leveling up steadily while Ju-hyuk is giving them buffs. Meanwhile, Saesong's undead army keeps increasing in size. Based on the map, they finally arrive at their destination. Just then, a monstrous bird attacks them. It grabs and lifts Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk gets offended and punches the bird. The bird tries to get away, but Ju-hyuk gets a hold of it. Ju-hyuk beats down while the girls watch him. He uses a tamer's ring he got from Ibe's drops. He succeeds in taming Carria. While registering his new pet, Ju-hyuk is surprised to see that it is an S-class pet. He registers the Carria as Bok Bok. Thanks to Bok Bok, they can now travel by flying. While looking for an entrance marked on the map, Ju-hyuk orders Bok Bok to fly at full speed to the location he points at. Using the speed, Ju-hyuk punches a part of the mountain, but the system tells them that the requirements have not yet been met. They need 200 living monsters as sacrifices in under 5 minutes. Ju-hyuk gets anxious that the entrance will be sealed. Just then, he realizes something. He asks the girls if Se-song's undead army is over 200 strong. However, Se-song feels bad about sacrificing her kids. Ju-hyuk tells her not to sympathize with them, and Sia just witnessed the first time she saw Se-song pout. Ju-hyuk reminds her that this is their first step toward being above others. Se-song hesitates. Ju-hyuk knows there is a side effect of her job class, and he reminds her once again about their goal. Se-song complies, and she sacrifices her 200 undead. She screams in pain as a side effect, and Ju-hyuk does his best to heal her. The system recognizes Se-song's decision and grants her a stat increase and rewards. The group later gets inside the underground cave, and they discover it is the inheritance of Kelt. Kelt is Ju-hyuk's master. The system checks for requirements. The absolute evil must defeat the 7 constellations or get strong helpers. The 3 helpers must give their consent or Ju-hyuk's account will be deleted. Ju-hyuk just realized that the 20 years of training are meant for this and he can't escape it. Sia, Se-song, and the pet give their consent. The trial gate opens and the group enters with confirmation. Meanwhile, Ivy, or Byung-gun in real life, it's a warning from his higher-ups. He just found out that Ju-hyuk was a Ramtadian. Ivy has already posted a subjugation quest to hunt down Ju-hyuk. Just then, someone calls him and claims to have become a constellation. Kang Moo-suk swears to avenge Ivy. Ju-hyuk enters the trials and notices that he is alone. He immediately faces a giant crow and defeats it in an instant. Remembers fighting it as a child. Kelt really plans to make Ju-hyuk the ultimate embodiment of evil. He levels up and reaches level 50. Meanwhile, Sia levels up and her magic spells rank also increases. Marina also leveled up and got more undead for her army. She feels happy seeing her undead evolve. Bok Bok, on the other hand, enjoys feasting on the bluestone drops. All of them clear the gate trials at the same time to meet up again. They all gain 10 levels. The system announces the start of the main gate trials. Ju-hyuk tries to warn them to be careful, but Kelt's voice interrupts him. Kelt congratulates him for being the absolute evil. They get surprised by Kelt's hologram. He keeps rambling about his teachings. He then asks Ju-hyuk to lead the Sky Devils to prosperity. The main quest suddenly is updated. The scale gets higher and Ju-hyuk needs to create the world of the Sky Devil. Kelt also mentions someone who can control the dead and who will help him. Kelt's hologram fades away as he says goodbye. The quest is to find the absolute necromancer. But wait, Se-song is the absolute necromancer. They surprisingly complete the Kelt's legacy. Ju-hyuk is glad that he met Se-song early on. Ju-hyuk receives nice rewards related to his evilness. Sia freaks out seeing a red and Ju-hyuk tells her to keep it. Meanwhile, Se-song receives unlimited mana as a skill. Sia congratulates her and invites her for a meal in reality to celebrate. Ju-hyuk can't believe Se-song received a cheat skill. Just then, Bok Bok evolves as a reward. Ju-hyuk uses his evil points to strengthen the skill Destruction. Destruction turns into true destruction, and it activates its effects. Outside the cave, Ibe looks for Ju-hyuk. The first constellation Moo-seok accompanies Ibe for his revenge. They also brought in an army of players. Just then, they notice an ominous portal on a cliffside. Ju-hyuk's group comes out of it, and everyone immediately recognizes the evilness coming from Ju-hyuk. For clearing Kelt's legacy, another reward that Ju-hyuk received is that his stats increase once again. The others congratulate Ju-hyuk, because the higher your level is, the harder it is to increase one's stat points. Since the quest Kelt's legacy is now cleared, the dungeon starts disappearing, and they are notified that their accounts would be deleted if they don't escape within the allotted time. Ju-hyuk curses his master one last time for leaving such a trap, and they escape by riding Bok Bok. They were about to leave when they noticed the army of players below them. Ju-hyuk realized that they must still think that he's Ramtadian and is there to hunt him down. One of the players suddenly blasts off into the sky in a sea of fire to confront Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk and his friends are contemplating whether they should just run away when the flying player abruptly calls out to them. It was the first constellation, Gang Moo-suk. Gang Moo-suk commends Ju-hyuk for surviving until then but warns him that he will now meet his end. Below them, the other players start streaming the fight since it was the first time they saw players flying around. Moo-suk was glad to see this because he wants to take this chance to improve his reputation by defeating Ju-hyuk. He summons his flaming sword and asks Ju-hyuk to surrender. If he manages to subdue the absolute evil, then their group Nova or Shinsong would be considered the strongest alliance in the world. Moo-suk's flame makes Bok Bok panic, and he grabs Moo-suk with his talons and throws him into the cliffside. The watching players are disappointed upon seeing Moo-suk getting manhandled by someone's pet. Ju-hyuk then approaches Moo-suk and tells him that they could not just fight. However, Moo-suk gets insulted by his offer. He changes his plans from capturing Ju-hyuk to murdering him. Moo-suk releases his full strength and activates his flare armor, wrapping him in flames. The girls ask Ju-hyuk if he needs help, but Ju-hyuk tells them to remain hidden in their cloaks. They could be tracked if people saw their behavior patterns, manner of speech, and other small habits. This would be especially dangerous for C, who's now the 7th constellation. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk faces Musuk, completely unafraid despite facing an alliance director. He wonders if he should murder Musuk even though this would make the Nova Alliance his enemy. However, he decides to murder him because he would confront them in the future anyway. After all, he is the absolute evil. He meets Musuk's flaming attack with his fists and blasts through it, punching Musuk. The damage destroys Musuk's flare armor, and his other equipment quickly activates to heal him. Ju-hyuk compliments Musuk's defense, but he wants to see more of his skills. Thus, he decides to taunt him some more. Ju-hyuk asks Musuk if he's just a rich boy splurging on his alliance to get support items. The taunting works and Musuk activates one of his strongest skills, Rampaging Flame. The sky is suddenly brimming with fire and even Ju-hyuk can feel the scorching heat from a distance. Ju-hyuk then jumps off Bok and charges straight to the rampaging flames. The players below are confused by the fight happening above them, but Ju-hyuk continues to charge through the fire and right into its center, where Musuk is located. Thus, the fight ends with their collision creating a huge explosion in the sky. A few minutes later in the real world, Musuk calls over to his assistant inside his office. He then orders his assistant to suppress the media and ensure that what happened today would not spread. His assistant bows and promises to delete every video of his boss dying, but Musuk shouts at him that he didn't die. He just logs out for a moment to rest. He berates his assistant for treating him like a dead man. After letting off some steam, Musuk reminds his assistant that the world is running thanks to high-ranking users like them. Therefore, it must make sure that bastards who come crawling up wouldn't show up again. Inside the game, Ju-hyuk is flying with Bok toward their new destination. Ju-hyuk affectionately pats Bok for carrying him around even though the girls aren't with him this time. Bok smiles and remembers the fight that occurred last time. He acknowledges that the burning human is strong, but seeing his master easily defeating him amazes Bok. He decides to follow Ju-hyuk's orders from now on. After their flight, Ju-hyuk and Bok land at the Sky Devil hideout. There, the 4th Elder Sershin hands Ju-hyuk a business report. It contains the hideout's strategy for surviving through winter. They would need winter clothes and heaters for each citizen, and since their population is approximately 800 people, their expenses would be 800 million gold. Ju-hyuk gets depressed at the large expense, but he decides that he would just consider it as an investment. After all, he still has the 4 billion gold he got from Yoren. He smiles and tells Sershin to use how much money he needs. Inside, though, Ju-hyuk is crying. Sershin brightens upon seeing his master's benevolence, and he asks if they can buy more expensive but better items. This would increase their expenses to 1.4 billion gold. Since Ju-hyuk already gave Sershin his blessing, he had no choice but to approve the higher expense. He managed to increase the citizens' loyalty thanks to his generosity. Later that night, Yoren sends a request to another elder, the 3rd elder, Rexar, for a secret meeting. Yoren tells Rexar that he already felt Ju-hyuk's Sky Destroyer's skill, and that should be enough proof for him to be her master. However, Rexar tells Yorhan that he has no plans of serving a man weaker than him. He reminds Yorhan that just like how he led Salmak through hardship, Rexar also grew his own group, the Black Flower House, with hardship as well. Therefore, he cannot accept a weaker master who would rule over them. Salmak asks Rexar if he thinks he can truly win against Ju-hyuk. Despite Ju-hyuk still under some restriction, Yoren had noticed just the other day when Ju-hyuk returned from his expedition that Ju-hyuk is getting even stronger. Now, he doesn't believe anymore that Ju-hyuk would lose even if he fought with the elders. Yoren also tells Rexar that Ju-hyuk decided to supply winter clothes and tools for the citizens. Rexar points out to Yorhan that this would drain Salmak's funds, but Yoren confesses that this just made him see Ju-hyuk's great potential even more. He even tells Rexar that Ju-hyuk already has a plan to get more funds. In the real world, news about Nova Alliance's successful monster regeneration project spread all over the internet. This would mean that if Shinshin managed to get it commercialized, then dungeons or hunting grounds would become obsolete. Steve points out to Ju-hyuk that this news might be conveniently released to bury the news about Ju-hyuk defeating the 1st constellation. However, Ju-hyuk tells Sia that he doesn't care about that. Instead, he advises Sia to hide her identity and use her connections with the other constellations well. Sia asks him where their next destination will be, and Ju-hyuk answers that it will be the river flowing to the sky. Sia reminds Ju-hyuk that river flowing to the sky is currently the exclusive hunting grounds of the Nova Alliance. They are using them to gather red stones for their research, so why would Ju-hyuk head there now? Ju-hyuk admits that that is exactly the reason why they are going there. The river flowing to the sky is the only place where the high-level boss monsters Big-Eared Elephant, Water-Gun Hippopotamus, and Two-Headed Crocodile appear. Because of these monsters, many Alliance members have been stationed there to ensure a reliable supply of their red stones. As such, he decides to take along the 6th Elder Zeta, who specializes in AoE damage, to accompany him. Ju Hyuk also decided that he won't be boasting to the world about him being the absolute evil, but he won't necessarily be hiding it either. At the warp crystal going to the river flowing to the sky, Ju Hyuk instructs Zeta to go invisible and follow him while he meets up with the other players. Sia, Sejong, and Rendel excitedly greet him. Rendel informs him that his undead status would go away soon, but he still wants to serve Ju Hyuk. Ju Hyuk wonders if he should accept Rendel's offer when he wants freedom just a few days before, but he decides to acknowledge Rendel's enthusiasm. Rendel then asks the girls to make him undead once again. With a quick lightning bolt from Sia, Rendel dies and Sejong revives him into an undead while shackling him this time to Ju Hyuk. Rendel is ecstatic upon learning that his status is now much higher than before. Thanks to Kelt's legacy, both Sejong and Ju Hyuk's skills leveled up, resulting in Rendel now being much stronger than his previous self. Ju Hyuk then tells them the plan for their excursion to the river flowing to the sky. They will split into 2 groups, the girls and the boys. Then the boys will warp through first, followed by Marion. Sia, being the 7th constellation, needs to be more careful, so she will only come over when Ju Hyuk ensures that the other side is safe. It was a normal day for the guards in the Nova Alliance's warp gate when they suddenly detected a full Chaos character approaching. They panic when they recognize this newcomer as Rantadian and quickly inform their HQ. However, to their surprise, HQ orders them to amicably let Ju Hyuk pass. Ju Hyuk wonders why they are letting them pass, but he, Rendel, and Bok Bok nonchalantly walk past the guards and enter the warp. It was quiet on the other side of the warp gate, so they decided to wait for the others to catch up. But suddenly, a huge barrage of magic spells came hurtling down at them. Thankfully, Ju Hyuk smiled since he predicted the obvious ambush from the very beginning. Rendel casts protection spells to block the magic barrage while Ju Hyuk buffs him. Rendel remarks that the area might be too big for him to block all attacks, but Ju Hyuk assures him he can use protection magic too. Behind them, the warp gate activates again as Sejong passes through the portal. She has no idea that a magic barrage is currently ongoing. She's right on target. The battlefield is filled with debris and smoke as the Nova Alliance stops their attack. The leader of the attack, Nova Director Flaming Noodle Soup, is confident that no one could have survived that onslaught. But suddenly, a bird flew out of the smoke and into the sky. It was Bok Bok with Ju Hyuk, Rendel, and Sejong on his back. Ju Hyuk asks everyone if they're okay, prompting Sejong to touch his shoulder and recall how he had saved her from getting burned. She was fine thanks to Ju Hyuk, so she asked him to let her join the fight this time. The 3 players jump down from Bok Bok's back while the Nova Alliance prepares themselves for a fight. One big player comments how Ju Hyuk and his friends were able to withstand their attack, which means they have high defense. Thus, their attack should be low. He volunteers to stand in front of their group and serve as the tank, while the others attack from behind. Meanwhile, Rendel prepares his camera to record the upcoming fight. The big player comes forth and tells them to surrender. Armed with a huge battle axe and a great shield, he is one of Nova's directors, Han Axe. Han Axe tells Ju Hyuk that if he apologizes to Musuk, then he would ensure that Ju Hyuk would not get the death sentence. Ju Hyuk asks what his crime is for getting the death sentence, so Han Axe explains his crime of invading Nova's area. Ju Hyuk smiles and points out that Nova didn't make this map and they don't own the land, so he wasn't breaking any rules. In fact, Nova is the one who just decided to manage the warp gate and take over the hunting grounds. As for Musuk, he was the one who attacked first, so Ju Hyuk was just defending himself. Sejong also uses her skill and summons an army of the undead. Ju Hyuk declares to Nova that he will smash their monopoly with his own hands. Han Axe commands his soldiers to attack, but in a blink of an eye, Ju Hyuk is now standing in front of him. One punch was all it took for the tank Han Axe to die. Ju Hyuk then orders their undead army to attack, and the 2 forces collide. The other director, Flaming Noodle Soup, is baffled by Han Axe's death. Not only that, but the number of undead enemies doesn't also seem to go down. He couldn't believe that the rookie necromancer, who is famous in the community forums, was on the absolute evil side. He realizes that the necromancer must be running out of mana by now and orders his subordinates to charge. Ju Hyuk instructs Sejong to pull back along with her undead as he faces off with the charging players. He then activates his skill, 100 slashes, and slices at the enemy. Director Flaming Noodle Soup orders his tanks to block the attack, but surprisingly, Ju Hyuk's slice goes through all of them, destroying everyone in one hit. Ju Hyuk earns more evil points for murdering a heroic ranked player. A notification window appears before Ju-hyuk, informing him that he can spend the absolute evil points to remove the unfair elements in his body for a short time. In the real world, the directors of Nova are having a meeting. They cannot forgive Ju-hyuk for wreaking havoc at their monopolized hunting grounds. To add insult to injury, videos of it are also being uploaded on the web, further disgracing their organization's name. Thus, they decide to send the Semi-Alliance head to join in the fight. Back at River Flowing to the Sky, Sejong casts her undead spell on the corpses littering the battlefield. The defeated Flaming Noodle Soup slowly rises again and can feel the command for him to eliminate his allies. Flaming Noodle Soup screams in pain as he tries to resist the command. Ju-hyuk then releases him from his misery and murders him, allowing him to take the red stones Flaming Noodle Soup dropped from dying. Ju-hyuk is curious about what unfair elements the notification window earlier is talking about, so he uses his evil points to temporarily get rid of them. This turns out to be his negative luck, and for the next 3 hours, his luck would finally be positive. A few moments later, Nova's reinforcements arrive. It was the trio of Nova's Semi-Alliance heads, the Three Swords of Nova. Rendel explains to Ju-hyuk who the three men are. First, there's Kelt, the bare-chested close-range martial artist who made his name as a max chaotic. Next is Assassin, who is known to have a hidden class associated with the blade. And lastly, the armored player named Rufin, who specializes in defense. Kelt speaks up and tells Ju-hyuk that if he surrenders quietly, then they won't exterminate him. But since they cannot just stay still, they will attack. Kelt then walks toward Ju-hyuk and suddenly charges with his skill Lion Fist. However, Ju-hyuk was unfazed and managed to catch Kelt's fist. He then responds with his own punch, blasting Kelt back. Everyone was stunned at the sudden development, and Rufin realizes that Ju-hyuk might be stronger than what their intel said. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk acknowledges Kelt's strength since he was the first person to survive getting hit by him. He instructs Rendel to step back and record the whole thing. Rufin tells Ju-hyuk that they acknowledge his strength, so they want to negotiate. If Ju-hyuk joins Nova, then they will give him the right to hunt in their hunting grounds and use all the Alliance's warp stones freely. They will also pay him 100 million won a year. Ju-hyuk replies that Rufin is just monopolizing the hunting grounds and warps as they please, and he already promised earlier that he would destroy their monopoly. If he was an ordinary player, they would never have offered such good conditions. Even now, low-ranking players are crawling beneath the Alliance just to have permission to enter a hunting ground or warp that they're controlling. Ju-hyuk's speech is also being broadcasted through the internet by Rendel. People comment about how stupid Ju-hyuk is for rejecting such a gracious offer, but they also hate Nova for monopolizing everything. The three players recognize that Ju-hyuk would never accept their offer, and they charge at Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk uses his slash at the approaching enemy, and Kelt was easily sliced apart, murdering him. From up in the trees, Assassin observed that he would never be able to get to Ju-hyuk. Thus, he decides to attack his teammates instead, more specifically the girl Necromancer. Her ability means that she must be an important strategic partner for Ju-hyuk. And since she's a Necromancer, her close-range combat must be weak. Assassin leaps from his spot and falls towards Sejong in the hopes of taking her hostage. However, Yornan suddenly appears behind Assassin and murders him. The only leader left is Rufin, and he has no idea what to do. He recognizes Yorhan as the leader of Salmak, but he has no idea why their leader is here. He has never revealed himself until now, so why would he have a relationship with the max chaotic Ju-hyuk? Meanwhile, Yornan continues to assassinate Rufin's soldiers. Sita also appears and casts his spell Advent of Diva, summoning a huge devil which he ordered to attack Rufin. Yorhan apologizes to Ju-hyuk for suddenly attacking without permission. Ju-hyuk also receives another communication from Rufin asking for one more chance to negotiate. He confesses that he was blind not to see Ju-hyuk's power and for offering only a measly 100 million. He promises to give him the best treatment the Alliance can offer if Ju-hyuk accepts their condition. Ju-hyuk rejects his offer once more, but this time he punches Rufin to death. After the battle, Rendel collects all the dropped items from the defeated Nova soldiers. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk introduces Sejong to his followers, the Sky Devil Elders. Ju-hyuk was about to count the gold Rendel collected when an ominous feeling suddenly washed over him. He quickly orders Rendel and Marian to get on Bok and retreat while he faces this new threat. In the distance, something was making its appearance. The unexpected quest Boss Monster Raid has been created. The game announces that the descent of the Absolute Evil on the land has been confirmed. Thus, the Absolute Evil's energy and the Monster Field's energy have met special conditions to summon the legendary boss monsters. The three monsters, the big-eared elephant, water-bound hippopotamus, and two-headed crocodile have now been formed. Up in the air, Sejong's eyes twinkle when she sees the big monsters. She shouts out to Ju Hyuk that he should give the monsters' corpses to her after the fight. Meanwhile, Yorin informs Ju Hyuk that Zeta and he would not be enough to defeat the powerful creatures, and since it would be dangerous for Ju Hyuk, who's still under restraint, then they should just retreat and come back later. Ju Hyuk rejects Yoren's plans and instead tells them that he himself would fight. They can just trust and watch him. The announcement earlier mentioned that the boss monster's appearance was due to the energy of the absolute evil. Then that means that these bosses are event monsters that are adjusted so that Ju Hyuk himself can hunt them. He activates his aura, and as expected, his energy is having a synergy effect on the monsters. Ju Hyuk casts his attack, White Slash, once more and slices at the monsters. Ju Hyuk's attack creates a synergy effect once more and a special condition is met. The boss monsters tremble in fear upon getting hit by Ju Hyuk's attack. Meanwhile, the elders are mesmerized by how quickly their master is growing. Not only did he defeat the Alliance members, but he also subjugated the boss monsters. As for Ju Hyuk, he was granted multiple hidden skills for accomplishing the special condition. He obtained the skills Hidden, Overpower, and Deadly Fist. In the real world, an important meeting is being held at the Nova Alliance corporate building. Supervisor Director Blazing Hot Ji Jampong had just finished reporting all their information about the max chaotic player that invaded their hunting ground. They are ashamed to learn that the attacker was just level 50. The Nova Alliance leader, Kang Moo-hwan, observes that their defeat at the hands of Ju Hyuk had made their status fall. After all, even the 3 semi-alliance heads lost against him. The 3 heads apologize to their boss for getting defeated, but their boss tells them that he doesn't want their apology. They lost because the enemy's powers were beyond what they expected. However, it is regrettable that they didn't learn his enemy in advance and offered negotiation terms that fit his abilities. They recognize that the Max Chaotic is not a standard player since he was so strong despite being just level 50. He is also smart for using social media to gain attention, while the other alliances are also starting to recruit him. And yet, Moo-hwan still orders the extermination of Ju Hyuk. Ju Hyuk is still Max Chaotic, meaning that he defies society at the end of the day. Based on his track record, they also believe that Ju Hyuk might truly be absolute evil, and they will announce this in the media to drive public opinion. No matter how strong Ju Hyuk is, they would have to show him that he can never surpass the majority. In the hunting grounds, Ju Hyuk continues to destroy the 3 boss monsters. As a reward, he obtains more gold and evil points. In addition to this, he also gets 3 black stones. The stones immediately shocked Ju Hyuk, who couldn't believe that he got such a rare item. Among the existing monster stones, the black stone is the highest grade. In fact, in the 200 or so years since Olympus came into operation, the appearance of a black stone is so rare that it only happened thrice in history. Ju Hyuk was still appreciating the 3 stones when 2 guest players suddenly arrived. It was a director from the Great Alliance, Ellen Blueheart, and the head of the Justice Alliance, Captain. Yorin immediately sneaks behind their backs and orders them to stop. Thankfully, Ju Hyuk orders him to let them go. The 2 players then approach Ju Hyuk to start their negotiations. They have arrived to scout Ju Hyuk out for their own organizations. Blueheart starts the negotiation by offering Ju Hyuk an annual salary of 300 million won, a unique tier set of items, unlimited access to Ellen-operated hunting grounds and warp maps, and the support of their whole organization. After Blueheart, Captain lays out his offer of a 500 million annual salary, as well as a rare item set. As Ju Hyuk thinks over their offers, Blueheart reminds him that it would be difficult for him to survive without the protection of an alliance. After all, he couldn't even use any trading institutions within the Korean peninsula. Ju Hyuk unleashes his aura and tells the 2 recruiters that he doesn't need their trading institutions. He has his own routes to get items and sell them. And as for their salary offers, Ju Hyuk demonstrates how he can easily destroy monsters and obtain their red stones. He then tells them that he can easily earn their offered salary by just hunting monsters. Captain panics and quickly ups their offer. He clarifies that they aren't offering 500 million won of $500 million. The sudden increase in money surprises Blueheart, but unfortunately, they cannot match that offer. Captain then informs Ju Hyuk that they will accept it if he rejects their offer, but if he wishes to negotiate, then he can always contact them. He then leaves, followed by Blueheart. Before she leaves, Odd contacts her and asks her how it went. Blueheart confesses that Ju Hyuk is truly arrogant, just like Ibe said, and Ibe asks her to recover his pouch in the future if she can. Ibe couldn't fathom why Ju Hyuk seemed to be making enemies not only of Nova, but Ellen as well. However, all he wants is to recover his pouch. A few days later, Ju Hyuk is wondering what he should do with the black stones he obtained when his phone suddenly rings from an unknown number. Upon answering, Sezon's voice enthusiastically greets him. It turns out that Sia was with her. and she wants to meet Ju-hyuk in the real world. An hour later, Ju-hyuk enters a fancy cafe. Inside, his younger sister welcomes him and introduces Sejong to him. But instead of looking happy to meet them, Ju-hyuk starts scolding them. He originally had no intentions of meeting the two girls offline, but after a little consideration, he decides that he needs to warn the two kids at least once. She reminds them that every little thing they say or do can be a clue. They must make sure that the nicknames they use inside and outside the game are different, as well as their manner of speech. In fact, he also advises Sejong to never tell anyone anything related to her class. Sejong quickly apologizes, prompting Sia to hug her and scold her older brother for being so strict. However, Ju-hyuk also scolds her for giving away his numbers so freely. After giving warnings to the two girls, Ju-hyuk leaves. Sia apologizes to Sejong for her brother's behavior and assures her that her brother isn't usually like this. Sejong wanted to meet him because from the moment they met online, she felt very comfortable around him. He also saved her from getting murdered, so she was hoping to thank him. She was disappointed that Ju-hyuk didn't even comment about her appearance when Sia assured her that her brother would be smitten by her. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk heads back into the game where Rendel welcomes him with a list of all the items they have acquired in the expedition. Ju-hyuk pats him on the head for his good work, and he starts going through their loot. The first thing he sees is the loot they took from Ibe, a video record stone. Ju-hyuk browses its contents and learns that it was video evidence of all the warp and hunting ground exclusive rights that Ibe bought and sold with kickbacks. That would explain why Ibe was willing to pay 1 billion won if he returned the pouch. Ju-hyuk then summons Yorhan and orders him to head to the Great Alliance Ellen. There, he would find a team captain named Ibe, and Ju-hyuk wants Yorhan to assassinate him. When Yorhan asks why, Ju-hyuk replies that he just doesn't like him. He plans to use the new evidence he has to pressure Ellen. In the real world, Ibe is reading through the forums annoyed at how Ju-hyuk is becoming famous after his fight with the Nova Alliance. He smiles when he reads that the Nova Alliance had declared Ju-hyuk as an absolute evil. He acknowledges that Ju-hyuk might be a good player, but he's still a single max chaotic who is making the whole world his enemy. Ellen Alliance also declares their agreement with Nova's decision to brand Ju-hyuk as the absolute evil. It would be only a matter of time for the other alliances to follow suit, and no one would stand by Ju-hyuk anymore. In the end, Ju-hyuk wouldn't even be able to find new allies in foreign-based continents because all the warp portals are controlled by alliances. Meanwhile, another news is also spreading throughout the internet. The legendary Blackstone has appeared in the market. The whole world is in an uproar regarding the news of another Blackstone appearing for sale. Numerous organizations quickly scramble their data in the hopes of being the first in line to buy it. Blackstone has an inherent usefulness that cannot be compared to the existing blue and red stones. It is said that the amount of energy a Blackstone holds is almost infinite. According to the actual results from a research laboratory in the United States, Blackstones may even be able to control natural disasters if used. Therefore, the appearance of a new Blackstone after 30 years is at the forefront of everyone's mind. In the Nova headquarters, the Nova Alliance leader, Kang Moo-hwan, receives some grave news. The owner of the Blackstone had announced that he would not sell the stone to Nova. Moo-hwan is stunned by this news, but he finally understands when he learns that the seller is actually the Max Chaotic they fought the other day. The reason he gave was that he just doesn't like Nova. Meanwhile, inside the game, Sia is annoyed for her brother because ever since Nova and Ellen announced that Ju-hyuk is the absolute evil, news articles and documentaries slandering Ju-hyuk's name had filled up the internet. Even the littlest bit that would have been favorable to him is gone now. Even Sejong expresses her disbelief at the article and defends Ju-hyuk. Ju-hyuk is confused by Sejong's reaction because as far as he knows, he never showed a good side of himself to her. He even scolded her when they met offline. Nevertheless, Ju-hyuk tells the two girls it doesn't matter. He anticipated it because it was inevitably going to happen if Nova and Ellen viewed him as an enemy, and now's not even the time to think about that. He has the Blackstone, so he must focus on selling it at an expensive price through an auction. On the day of the auction, Ju-hyuk summons all the prospective buyers of the Blackstone into the abandoned Colosseum of the Centeniac continent. The buyers were annoyed that Nova and Ellen didn't allow anyone to use their warp gates to go to the auction, but they believe it was because they just didn't want the Blackstone to be bought by someone from abroad. Meanwhile, Ju-hyuk applies the advice Sershin gave to him about selling the Blackstone. First, no matter how unfavorable of a demand Ju-hyuk gives, the buyers would surely follow his conditions because that's just how valuable the Blackstone is. Ju-hyuk's condition was that any buyers would have to disarm themselves and only wear a minimal amount of armor. Ju-hyuk is also using the elders as security details as well as the members of Salmak. Lastly, those who Ju-hyuk had forbidden from buying the Blackstone would have their identities revealed without fail. After the buyers have been checked and verified, Ju Hyuk shows himself and thanks them for complying with his conditions. He then informs them that he will not set a starting price and declares that the auction for the Blackstone will now commence. Almost immediately, the first bid was 600 billion gold. The absurdly high price stunned Ju Hyuk, but he had to keep his face calm. The buyers continue bidding higher and higher, 700 billion, 950 billion, and in just a few seconds, the bid is already 2 trillion gold. Ju Hyuk is starting to wonder if the Blackstone is truly worth 2 trillion gold when a hand slowly raises and bids 30 trillion gold. Everyone is stunned and stares at this new bidder. It was the mega millionaire Rendel, the ruler of the Faria continent in the Middle Eastern server. He is also the alliance leader of the group Qatar. Another buyer raises his hand and bids 31 trillion gold, beating Rendel's price. Rendel just smiles and bids 50 trillion gold. Unsurprisingly, no one seemed to be able to bid any higher. Ju Hyuk asks around one last time when a player suddenly stands up with a bomb. The player yells out that the absolute evil has ordered him to murder everyone there and detonates the bomb, creating a huge explosion in the audience stands. Unfortunately for them, this is all going according to Sershin's prediction. They know that their enemies will attempt to disturb the auction. They'll try to stop users from other continents from reaching the auction place. And then they'll throw the place into confusion by having a bombing while having the other players believe that it was Ju Hyuk's subordinates who attacked the players. The bombers' allies are waiting for the confusion to start when suddenly they feel a knife against their throats. Yorhan had already identified and disarmed them. The bomber also didn't cause any confusion among the other buyers. Ju Hyuk knows that his buyers would be players from all over the world. This means that no matter how minimal their equipment may be, they are still all world-renowned rankers with high levels. Such an explosion would not even penetrate the player's personal barriers. Meanwhile, Yoran grabs the other attackers by the throat and demands to know who ordered the attack. Unfortunately, the attackers all vanish as they take their own lives. Yoran heads to Ju Hyuk and apologizes for failing to learn who the enemy is. The Justice Alliance head, Kaplan, concludes that the terrorist incident is strictly the act of outsiders and deems Ju Hyuk innocent. Meanwhile, Ju Hyuk decides to concoct a plan to know who the attacker is. He announces to everyone present that he can use the Blackstone himself. Why? Because he has 2 more. He is just selling one for the sake of world peace and the development of human civilization. But now he declares that he won't sell the other 2 until the mastermind behind the attack is revealed. If the mastermind isn't revealed, then Ju Hyuk's reputation would get worse, and he will be isolated in Korean society. But still, he will not sell to the Nova and Ellen alliances even if they figure out who the mastermind is. A buyer asks him why he's not selling to the 2 named alliances, so Ju Hyuk explains that he just doesn't like them. The others start wondering if Nova and Ellen are the masterminds behind the incident. Nevertheless, the 2 alliances are now in check just from Ju Hyuk's move. The other buyers leave the stadium believing that if they learn the link between Nova and Ellen, then they might get a priority chance of buying Blackstones. After everyone had left, the only people remaining were Ju Hyuk, the elders, and Rendel the buyer. Rendel mentions how Ju Hyuk is a max chaotic user, so they won't be able to exchange the goods through an official exchange. Thus, he decides to give Ju Hyuk the money first and gives him a bag containing 50 trillion gold. Ju Hyuk is shocked that Rendel would just hand over the money when they could have done the trade through subordinates or by checking the items first. However, Rendel confesses that he saw in Ju Hyuk the qualities of being a ruler of the world. Thus, he decides to trust him as a show of courtesy. In front of the kindly prince, Ju Hyuk is ashamed that the thought of stealing the money crossed his mind. But if he did that, then the world would truly be his enemy. Thus, he hands over the Blackstone to Rendel. When questioned by Ju Hyuk on what Rendel plans to do with the Blackstone, Rendel narrates to him how a lot of people in the world need a helping hand. Some people lost their livelihoods even within Olympus due to a disaster or an accident. Some children cannot attend the academy. Using the Blackstone, Rendel wants to lend them a helping hand. He will sponsor children so that they can go to the academy. But this endeavor cannot be done through money alone. But with the Blackstone and its infinite energy, then it might just be possible. Rendel explains that because he is royalty and was born luckier than others, then it is his duty to take on this responsibility. Ju Hyuk smiles since he is glad that he sold the Blackstone to a decent person. Meanwhile, Nova leader Moo Won is exasperated to learn that Ju Hyuk has not 1 Blackstone but 3. One piece of good news, however, is that the guys they hired cannot be linked back to them. Moo Won starts wondering that if Ju Hyuk had revealed 3 Blackstones, then he might even have more. He's questioning himself if he needs to withdraw their extermination order and befriend the guy. However, he cannot just throw away the pride of the Nova. If he had a Blackstone, then they would be able to produce monsters without any difficulty. It was a sleepless night for the leader who didn't know what to do. With the success of selling the Blackstone, a quest notification suddenly appears before Ju Hyuk, informing him that 2 more elders have finally acknowledged him as their master. That only leaves one last elder. Thankfully, he doesn't have to look for the last elder because a new visitor suddenly drops from above. The last elder, Rexar, leader of the Black Flower House, formally challenges Ju Hyuk to a duel. A new SSS rank quest pops up in front of Ju Hyuk, informing him of the requirements of the duel. He is currently debuffed during the duel, but upon winning it, the last elder would acknowledge him. Ju Hyuk looks confused when he reads the quest, so Rexar explains that he, along with the 2 remaining doubtful elders, were watching the Blackstone auction from afar. Seeing how deftly Ju Hyuk completed the auction, the other 2 elders acknowledged him. Each elder has a certain quality they judge the absolute evil with. This could be charisma, wisdom, ambition, or decision-making. Rexar is the one in charge of strength. He is still not satisfied that Ju Hyuk has the strength to be their master. The slight to their master irritates the other elders, and they jump to defend Ju Hyuk. However, Ju Hyuk scolds them and declares that no matter what the result of the duel will be, no one will get involved. He then tells Rexar that he accepts his challenge. The other elders ask Yorhan who he thinks will win. Rexar shares with them that just a moment ago their master's energy was overflowing with strength, but it suddenly seemed weak when Rexar appeared. Nevertheless, he has no choice but to trust in his master. Meanwhile, Ju Hyuk wonders if he can win the duel despite being debuffed. He remembers his encounters with all the other elders and cannot help but admit that he had grown his own way. Zeus had always let him find the way, so in short, there must be a way for him to win. He gets into his stance and tells Rexar to attack. Rexar suddenly disappears from where he was standing and moves all around Ju Hyuk. He is so fast that Ju Hyuk gets scratched on the cheek and his eyes can't almost follow Rexar's movement. Rexar leaps into the air and slashes downward at Ju Hyuk's head. The other helpers shriek out upon witnessing the resulting explosion, but Yoren points out that they should look again. Ju Hyuk had caught Rexar's sword using a gauntlet. Ju Hyuk then throws Rexar off his own sword and slams him into the ground. The other elders celebrate Ju Hyuk's victory. In all honesty, Ju Hyuk realized earlier when he got scratched on the cheek that Rexar's attack barely damaged him and can still react to them despite being debuffed. Thus, he was confident that he could withstand an attack from the assassin. Meanwhile, Rexar kneels in front of Ju Hyuk and finally acknowledges Ju Hyuk. He also asks for punishment for doubting Ju Hyuk's strength. Ju Hyuk benevolently instructs Rexar to raise his head and forgives him. Instead, he asks him to serve as an elder. With tears in his eyes, Rexar hugs Ju Hyuk's legs and thanks him for his mercy. Ju Hyuk can officially clear the Return of the Absolute Ruler quest. A few minutes later, Sershin approaches Ju Hyuk and tells him about his new idea. Using the 50 trillion gold, it can finally do a metropolis relocation. Ju Hyuk and the elders all relocate to another place to conduct their briefing. First, Sershin explains why he suggested a metropolis relocation. The land surrounding the current Sky Devil hideout has already been exhausted, and they don't even have community infrastructure set up. As such, it would be cheaper to relocate than to artificially improve the land. Sershin suggests the new place called 9 as their next base of operations. It is surrounded by tall mountains that can easily be defended against numerically superior foes. There's also an enormous river ensuring the supply of fresh water. Ju Hyuk sees the logic of Sershin's suggestion, so he asks him how much it would cost. When Sershin replied that it would cost around 10 trillion gold, Ju Hyuk was shocked. However, he remembers how Rendel can spend 50 trillion gold just to help others, so he should be able to spend 10 trillion at least. The relocation would also be led by the newly joined 8th and 11th Elder. Ju Hyuk reminds himself that the USA spends a quadrillion per year running a country, so 10 trillion is a cheap price. Thus, he commands the elders to start the relocation. A few days later, Ju Hyuk's new base of operations is now at the capital of Nan. While Sershin manages the relocation, Ju Hyuk decides to go over the rewards for completing the Return of the Absolute Ruler quest. His first reward was the ability to move the high altar of the Absolute Ruler. Currently, it was just the small bonfire the elders were using. For the second reward, he will be able to obtain it by using a Blackstone. Ju Hyuk hesitates since that would mean the reward would cost him basically 50 trillion gold. However, he realizes he has no choice but to accept the reward, so he allows the Blackstone to be used. Suddenly, mana explodes around Ju Hyuk and the announcement explains that a job change will occur. He will now get the job Absolute Evil. It was the first time in history that someone had both a job title and class with the same name. The terrifying magic energy even worries the 2 elders guarding Ju Hyuk. Thankfully, the job change just means another unbelievable specs boost for Ju Hyuk. Almost all of his skills leveled up, and he even got 2 new skills. Rexer and Sershin approach to ask him if he's okay, but Ju-hyuk just smiles and tells them to help him check something out. Meanwhile, in the real world, televisions are abuzz with the news of the 7 constellations finally confirmed. The first assembly of them in the Earp's Imperial City had just been completed successfully. Ju-hyuk asks his sister Si how the meeting went, and Si narrates how it was amazing. 5 of the 7 constellations turned out to be Korean, and one of them even has a level over 130. Ju-hyuk recalls how his master before told him that one can only be called a ranker when his level is over 99. Musa was also in the meeting, but he was all angry and trying to hype others up to fight the absolute evil. Lastly, Sia also shares that she received a Constellation-exclusive quest, and they must do it together. Thus, she probably won't be able to accompany Ju-hyuk for a while. Ju-hyuk advises her to just think of it as a good opportunity. Since the other constellations are gathered, then it would be easier for them to gather information about them too. He instructs Sia to find out each constellation's characteristics and weaknesses. Sia's eyes sparkle at the thought of acting like a spy. Ju-hyuk then tells Sia that she should go out with him tomorrow. They are going to buy an apartment in her name. The 2 siblings head to a nearby real estate agency to start the purchase. A real estate agent happily welcomes them and asks them for their desired price and location. Ju-hyuk points to a nearby fancy apartment complex, surprising the real estate agent because the siblings look too young to afford such a place. She offers them a yearly lease, but she was shocked once more when Ju-hyuk corrects her and informs them that he will be purchasing the apartment in one lump sum. Being the perfect customers, the contract was quickly signed. Ju-hyuk had made 50 trillion, so it was easy for him to buy a 500 million won home for his sister. He could have bought something much nicer, but they would stand out too much if they abruptly moved to a really nice place in one go. Of course, he also placed the property in Sia's name so she could say that she became wealthy when she became a constellation. Nevertheless, he must be as careful as possible since his sister is now in contact with the other constellations. The possibility of her identity getting revealed will always exist. He must get even stronger so that he can protect them both. A few days later, Ju-hyuk heads back to Olympus and meets Rendel and Sejong. The destination for their current expedition is the cave of Jiragaktu. Rendel is apprehensive about entering the cave because it is teeming with centipedes, snakes, and ants. Tens of thousands of them usually attack the players at the same time, so one would usually need a flame magician with them. Meanwhile, Sejong isn't even scared and tells Rendel that if they stick with Ju-hyuk, they'll be fine. Sejong's already above level 50 and her growth is even faster than Sia. Her countless undead army also keeps getting larger and stronger. Despite that, it's not enough. If the constellations are gathered and doing quests together, then they also can't be just relaxing either. Inside the cave, another group of players are hunting the monsters. They are using the common strategy of flame magic against the insects and burn them to the ground. The group's name is Hyria, and it is led by their leader Markin. After exterminating the nest of insects, Markin is happy to see a red stone dropped by the monsters. He was formerly a captain in Nova, but he resigned from the Alliance due to internal politics. He then made a small group with his 2 subordinates who left with him. Half of their earnings are still paid to Nova for using their hunting grounds, but he is happier now in their new way of life. Inside the cave, Markin was notified by a subordinate that a max chaotic player was approaching. The player was accompanied by a colossal eagle-looking pet, a necromancer, and another max chaotic player. Markin immediately recognizes the leader as the absolute evil. Not wanting a fight, their group bows and lets Ju-hyuk and the others pass through. Markin remembers that the ants are about to respawn again, and he notices that Ju-hyuk's group doesn't have a flame magician with them. He was about to offer the services of his group when the large birds suddenly attacked and hunted the insects. Markin realizes that this might be a situation they cannot handle and tells his subordinates to pack their belongings. Their hunt is now ruined. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Musok is talking to another player, a girl beastmaster named Yujin. Yujin tells him that she saw the video of Musok's defeat at the hands of the absolute evil. However, she still believes in Musok's strength. After all, he was still chosen as the first constellation, and even her own guild, Sons of Heaven, acknowledged his strength. Yujin then mentions the rumor she heard that an insignificant player managed to be chosen as the 7th constellation. She was annoyed that a no-name player managed to be included in the prestigious group when Yujin herself failed to get in. Musok plans to leave her be while they do quests together and then investigate her some more when they get more clues. Before she leaves, Yujin scarily exclaims that she has no intention of allowing a low-class player to stand above her. After all, it would be easy for someone insignificant to be murdered in an accident. Please read the pinned comment about the next part.